Hello, hello, hello. Kevin Epps here, Digital Brilliance Hour with another tutorial. All right, appreciate you guys for coming back. Been a very busy time, needed some time away. Had to kind of recalibrate my mind, recenter myself, handle some things. It was probably seeming like I was juggling multiple things all at one time. I still kind of am, but I wanted to take some time to be able to kind of rethink and feel and look back at what can be most useful to people in the OpenBOR community. And I decided to kind of go a different approach. I probably still will bring the Code Breaker series back. I'm gonna give that a pause for a moment because it did take a little while to make those. Actually, that's one thing I enjoy about growing in the field, is being able to kind of see how other people code and understand. Having that reading comprehension is key because that allows you to be able to grow in ways that you didn't think you would, which is why I keep hounding on that so much. So anyway, so in this particular video, we're actually going to go over some different ways of how to do animations, how to really use the advanced scripting, how to really embrace it. Because to be completely honest, if you really want to make high-end games full of really cool effects and animations, you also want everything to be very smooth when it comes to these animations. So after just going through a lot of studying and kind of really getting an understanding of how things work, and even my Code Breaker series and videos, I wanted to show you some things that I've kind of cooked up on how to make things and animations just a little smoother. And I'll probably do another video putting this into practice even more. Right now, I'm only going to focus on the zoom models that have been, passed around for quite a while, and actually updating those models to make them even more smoother than what they were before. So, and actually I have an example of this happening here where, actually, let me just show you. This is a working example of when it zooms in, but let me also show when it zooms out. So zoom out is actually in the none. It's a none model. So we're gonna go to the model, and that, as we can see, right? So we have, and a lot of games and scripts kind of show these models this way, where they take the value and increment or decrement the value based on each frame. And it works. You can control how fast or slow it is by the delay. So yes, this works, and it works very well. But what if you want to make this a little bit more fluid, and also you want to be able to control this from wherever you call it. So you want to be able to control, and I'm not going to go into the controlling of the speeds today, not in this video, but in the next video I will. But you want to be able to, let's say, control how fast or slow the zoom is, or how far to zoom in or zoom out. So these are this is kind of what this does. This takes the zoom value that has, assuming that it's already been zoomed in, because the value is set, the zoom value, this is a global value that can be set for the zoom. So zoom value set to 360, and then if I want to bring it down to 260 is the default value. As you can see here, is decrementing it 10 by 10 notches each time. And actually there's a double stop here, so there's 2 frames where it doesn't even move, and in this case one of these would have to be removed, so it'd be a fluid thing. But at any rate, that's what's happening right now. The way I would go about doing this whole matter is, number one, first I would copy these 4 lines, the zoom entity, the zoom X, zoom Y, and the beginning zoom value, which is 360. I'm just gonna cut. So I just highlight it and hit Control X. I'm actually gonna put this underneath offset. So this will be applied before the first frame is even ran. And so right underneath that, and actually I'll just type this out so you can see. I mean, I could copy and paste from the working model, but I kind of want you to see how I came about doing this. So first, you know, each model, you know, you have ways to include scripts inside of the model. You could either create your own file to do this, or you can code the script inside of the model file. So at this point, I'm just gonna code it inside of the model file for right now. So we got a script. First thing I always do is get the self model. So I'll do a void self, get local var self. There you go. So anytime I need to refer to this, I already have it declared in the code, and so I can refer back to it. All right, first things first though, we already have the zoom entity that has been, the variable has been declared to this particular self or this model. So that's the zoom entity. And then you can take zoom X and zoom Y and apply it to that entity. And then also apply the zoom value, which is 36. And since we are zooming out, that means we're going to have to decrement down to 260. And we don't want it going any further than 260. And so in this case, because of that, first, we need to have a variable that pulls in the current value that has been set to the global variable zoom value. So we're going to do an int zoom value get global variable global var. And so we are getting the zoom value of we're getting the global variable of zoom value that has already been set here at the top. So let's keep that in mind. It's being set here, and now in the script part of it, we're actually getting that value and storing it in zoom value. Why are we doing this? Because we want to edit this value and then set that value to zoom value and do a constant repeat on that until it's time to stop, basically. Okay. So what we'll do is, at this time, zoom value, we already know zoom value is going to be 360 based on this, and we don't want it going lower than 260. So we're going to use a conditional to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're going to say if zoom value is greater than 260. So we want this to be we want to ensure that this only runs when zoom value, which is 360 at the current, is greater than 260, and we're going to decrement it down until it reaches 260. So if zoom value is greater than 260, what we're going to do is now zoom value, we're going to decrement actually. So that's just a minus and the equal sign. Decrement by 10. So it's going to decrement by 10, and then we're going to also ensure that zoom value is set to the setting of, because when you set the value, it also stores the value that you set into the actual variable assigned to it. So set global variable zoom value, and then we're going to set it to the current zoom value, which at this point should be 350. And this is going to continuously loop. So that's why we have this if here. And there's some changes we're going to do up here in a second, because we want this animation to continue looping so that this runs until it needs to stop. All right. So we have this is going to continuously be set. We're going to close this conditional out. So we have zoom value, if it's greater than 260, keep decrementing it. And once it gets to 260, it's going to stop doing this. And so at that point, you can actually just put an else. And if we see down here at the bottom, there is a kill self here. And then there's also a setting of the zoom entity to null. So we're going to actually apply both of these commands here through script though, because the command is basically a model form of calling a function basically. So we see that set global variable, this is the function, and these two are the parameters of this function. So same with kill entity. Kill entity is the function, get local variable, self is the parameter of that function. So now that we know that, let's just write that in actual C instead of in this model form. So we are going to set global var of zoom entity to null. So this is how this would be run. If you ever looked at the script log, when you actually have this scripting going on here in these models and you have these commands, the script is going to show that command like this. It's going to show it in the actual C form, in the functional form. So first we're going to set the entity to null, and then we're going to kill entity, which is self. And remember, self was already declared at the top here. So you don't have to always show this whole thing. You've already stored it in its own variable, and you would just kill it here. And at that point, and if for some reason, let's say we wanted just to be on the safe side, we could also say, although it's not necessary, but you could also say set global var of zoom value to 260. So that way it doesn't go any lower than 260. So and let me tab this out. Whoops. Anyway, all right. Now this dude, I like for my code to have some uniformity. That's all. All right. So in this case, once this condition has been reached, once it is less than 260, it's going to set the zoom value to 260 by default. Then it's going to set the zoom entity that was already set here. It's going to set that to null. So it's going to clean itself out, and then also kill this actual animation. Actually kill this this model itself. So it's going to kill everything. All right. And so now we can just end this script. Okay, so we have the void self, the zoom value, the if and else conditionals that will decrement by 10 on its own. So we're not even going to need all of these things. So I'm actually just going to delete all of these. We're not even going to need this anymore. All right, so what will happen? So first, let's go up to loop now. So we have loop where we let's also change delay to 1. All right, so we have loop here where we want it to loop instead of not loop. So we're going to set this to 1 and also have it loop at the second, after the first. After the first frame, it's going to loop between these two over and over and over and over and over. And if you want to be on the safe side, you can also say 2, and it'll loop at this one, and you can just create another empty frame. You don't necessarily have to do this, but if you are nervous, you can do that as well. Both will work though. All right, so I'll just leave it here. Actually, I'll just set it back to 1. So this part, this everything here, because script is going to run on its own. This is not related to any of the frames at all. This is a script that you're telling it to do based on what happens during these frames and these commands. So these commands are run initially right before the first frame. You're telling this animation to loop after the first frame. So it's going to loop these 3 times, and for each run, this will happen. All right. So let's go ahead and save it real quick. And we also have this on zoom in. Let me show you zoom in as well. This is a text model, so this stops the screen as it zooms in. So as you can see, I have something very similar where we have the loop, and then this is where I also apply to. So we'll show where both actually work. So we have loop 1 and 2. We have the set variables of the self and the zoom X and Y and the zoom value. Then we have the script of void self again, the zoom value, but this time the value is 260, and so we want to allow it to move up to 360. So if zoom value is less than 360, and see, I didn't know, well, we'll keep going. Zoom value is less than 360, and let's make sure this is 10. I just changed it around to 8 just to see how fast or slow I can make it, but and it does work. Zoom value will increment every 10 after every loop of each frame, and then the zoom value is then set to zoom value to the global variable. Once it gets to 360, once zoom value gets higher than 360, it's going to then kill this actual model itself, and that's what happened. Again, I don't have where I set it to 360 by default. It's not really necessary, so I just wanted to show you 2 different examples of how you could do it. All right, so now let's go ahead and start it. So I'm going to start one of the games up here, and this is the Ogre's Mayhem game that I have, that we always work on and build to be soon completed. So let's wait on this to run, and then we're going to go to the training. We're going to go to the training area. Now I'm going to choose Deku. Okay, so let me just do a super move, and then you'll see what actually happens. So as you can see, right, there is a zoom in and a zoom out that happens. And as you can see, nothing breaks. It zooms really, let me get in the middle here. Okay, yep. It zooms very smoothly, actually. Let me transform. All right, yeah, so you can see how smooth this is instead of having to, but yes, as you can see, this zoom is very smooth. All right, so that's one way you can go about doing animations and doing different things using models instead of trying to define each value based on each frame. It can kind of get a little. Actually, let me close this out, and I'm gonna go back to the zoom in, zoom out. Oh yeah, save. Zoom out, go to in idle. I don't know why I can't talk. Go to idle, and then we're going to, I'm gonna change this down to like 2. All right, and then now we'll be able to see how slow the zoom out happens. So you can just add it to one place instead of having to change each and every value. You could do it all in one place, and it'll be even smoother. All right, so let's go to training area again. All right. So you see how slow I can make it? Yeah. So there you go. So you can change the actual value, the actual increment or decrement value from one spot. Now we'll actually stop here, but in the next video though, we'll go over how to set different variables for these values. You can set variables for these values if you want, for the zoom value. And this is with anything. Right now, we're just using this for the zoom entity and for the zoom. But in our, you could actually do this with anything. You could do this with scaling something. You could do this with adding color to something. You could really do this with anything. So in the next video though, I'll probably go through how to make these into like their own variables, and then be able to apply values to these variables from the call of the model. So for instance, let's go to Deku really quick. I'll just go to his transformation. Oh, I'm hitting down. I was like, why am I not seeing Deku? All right, here we go. And so if we go to one of these here. Okay, so for instance, so here's a zoom in, right? We can actually create something where we can actually call something here. We can call this actual spawn, and then also add in additional parameters to be able to target. If we go back to be able to talk, man, this is going, okay, here we go. To be able to target these values. So you can add values to be able to target these. And actually, I do have an example of that in this game here, and I'm trying to remember where. Oh yeah, we did this with, I believe, Bakugo. Yeah, we did this for Bakugo. So in this case, you know, all of these lows that we have for this boss, they have different sizes and things of that nature. So I wanted to be able to, excuse me, instead of always having to create a new model with a different size and all of that, I only wanted to create one model and then alter it at will. So if we go to run, I think I'll apply this at run. Okay, yes. So in this case though, I did it slightly different, where we have the spawn here. There is and I think I applied a current spawn, a current spawn declaration in the spawn 01, I believe I did. Let me actually open this up, and it should be in animation C. So I'm gonna do a search for spawn 01. All right, so spawn 01 is here. We have voice self spawn, direction, and all of that. Okay, here we go. So I actually added this line. This function was written by DC, And I went on ahead and just added this line of code here that sets the local variable of current spawn to then the spawn that was actually spawned. So that's one way to go about it. There's so many different ways. That's why I love scripting. But anyway, there's so many different ways to go about this. So this was added here. And then in this case, I then was able to take that current spawn and then manipulate that spawn however I wanted to from this model. So now I wouldn't have to worry about having to create a whole new model and all that stuff. So that is one way to go about it. But I'm also going to show a way to this might be the better way, but I'll show both ways to apply even more. We may have to write a whole new function. This actually might be better. Just take the current spawn and then apply whatever you want to it. But yeah, I'll show something to make this even more smoother and be able to apply different variables to the particular function. So that'll be next. And one more note that I wanted to share. So I know you saw the zoom model and all the things that were being declared in it. I just wanted to show you that there's an additional function that gets ran in the update function. So as you can see, you should see some actual names here that seem very familiar. You got the zoom value, then you have zoom X, zoom Y, zoom entity, and then you have the entity property of that entity, which is a ENT, and then you have the zoom screen of getting that variable, and then this is where everything happens in regards to zooming the screen based on the values that have been set, where you change the draw method. You got reset enabled. Here's the scale X to the zoom values. Here's the center point. Here's the draw screen where that actually resizes that draw screen. Then setting the draw method to null. Setting the draw method of the screen to null, and then drawing the sprite of the screen and clearing the sprite of the screen. So this function, you definitely have to make sure. I think there should be a zoom script somewhere in ChronoCrash. I'd have to find it. If I find it, I'll put it inside of the. It actually should be in the. It actually should be in our OpenBOR class files, and then we can see that in main, because again, main will always be the default function in any script. So this is the updated.c. So this gets run over and over after each loop. So we have the main, and then if get variable, if there's a zoom entity variable here, because that's why we got rid of the variable and changed it to null in the zoom out, because this will make it zoom. So this will run this particular function up here that will do all that it does using the variables that we declare. So once that is done, once you change this to null, then this will end. But so this only runs when zoom entity is set to something, which is why we set zoom entity to the actual object or model. All right, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. That's just not something that you can just apply and then it just runs. There's some underlining things that happen underneath the scenes as well. So if I'll include a link to our class package, and you should be able to see the scripting and all of that there if you want to apply it to your own game. All right, hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, just let me know. I hope you guys stay blessed and stay brilliant. Peace.